Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Coach Ron, the Colorado Buffaloes. It's not going to be any different. We're going to see them get very aggressive in the transfer portal. And, I think there's a couple of different exciting conversations to have if you're a Colorado fan. And I think it starts with, all right, what positions do we need to address in this cycle's transfer portal? And something we said a couple of weeks ago when we had a preliminary discussion was, look, this Colorado roster is in a much better spot than it was 12 months ago or 24 months ago when Coach Prime took it over. And so you don't have to go to the transfer portal and grab players at every single position like you had last year. I think you can be a little bit more targeted. I think you can go and do a little bit more big game hunting, so to speak, and grab true difference makers at some of these positions of concern. And it kind of starts on the offensive line. I look at the offensive line and say, yeah, you're going to lose some guys from this year's offensive line, but you also have some young talent that's kind of in the pipeline, right? Jordan Seaton anchoring at left tackle. You saw some good things from some young centers over the last couple of weeks of the season. You have guys like Zach Owens and Peyton Kirkland, who I think, Coach Prime intentionally brought in last transfer portal cycle to get them into the program and develop them. I think there's a good chance some of them are ready to start in 2025 as well. 12 months ago, it was a full fire sale. We have to revamp this offensive line. I think this transfer portal cycle, yeah, you might see Colorado address the offensive line at a few positions and build some depth. I don't know if you need to bring in 6, 7 guys like Colorado did last year, which allows you to target some real difference makers at some other positions. Really excited to get into this one now. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Colorado fans, a lot of y'all who've been rocking with the boys, really going back to last transfer portal cycle. The amount of support y'all continue to show, it's amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, I like to hear some input and some takes specifically regarding the quarterback position. And we're going to get into some other positions I want to see Colorado address. You obviously, Casey Concepcion's a guy we're going to start with. What does Colorado do at the quarterback spot? So many of y'all know I'm a Michigan fan. Colorado and Michigan are in very similar situations where we have some true freshman quarterbacks coming in, and Bryce Underwood and Julian Lewis, who are studs, who are guys that could be ready to play as true freshmen. And I think in Colorado's instance, I think that's why they went after Julian Lewis. He was one of the most college-ready quarterbacks that we saw in the 2025 high school recruiting class. I don't think it's a coincidence that that's who Coach Prime decided to go after, a guy that could be ready day one. Now, does Colorado choose to add a veteran quarterback to go in and compete with Julian Lewis? I'm kind of indifferent. I'm not necessarily sure what Coach Prime should or would do. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I also think it's going to be hard to convince a quarterback to come in and compete with a quarterback like Julian Lewis. And if that's the case, you might just say, hey, we're going to rock with Julian Lewis. There might be some growing pains for a young true freshman quarterback, but we're going to pay a ton of attention at surrounding him with pieces that he can be really successful with. And that's where we get into a conversation about the wide receivers. I think there's some young talent on the team. Guys like Draylon Miller, Amarian Miller coming back from injury. You like some of the young talent in this wide receiver room, but you also want to add some proven difference makers on the outside too when you lose guys like Will Shepard and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, LeJontay Wester as well. Casey Concepcion. And I think what's really unique about this is he's already kind of on the target list, right? When Casey Concepcion hits the transfer portal, what schools should we keep an eye on? Colorado is one of those names. And it makes a lot of sense. What makes a ton of sense for Casey Concepcion, he's a do-it-all wide receiver, and he's a do-it-all playmaker for an offense. You look at him and say he, as a true freshman at NC State in 2023, when they had decent quarterback play, led the team in targets, had over 100 targets as a true freshman, led them in receiving yards, led them in rushing yards, led them in touchdowns. He was their offense as a true freshman. Now, the production dipped a little bit in 2024 as they had to go to a true freshman quarterback. To me, what better weapon to surround Julian Lewis with than a guy that can work vertically down the field, a guy that can work with the football in his hands, a guy that can create separation like the best of wide receivers in the country. To me, he's that dynamic playmaker that you would want to surround a guy like Julian Lewis with. Another name that I would look at here, CJ Daniels from LSU. He reminds me of Will Sheppard. Will Sheppard coming over from Vanderbilt last year, this big-bodied boundary wide receiver that can work vertically down the field, and that size-speed combination is so difficult for defensive backs to deal with. You saw Will Sheppard and his injection into this offense, that vertical threat, be a difference maker for Colorado multiple times in 2024. CJ Daniels, to me, very similar kind of wide receiver, right? 6'2", looks bigger than 6'2", certainly plays bigger than 6'2", over 200 pounds, was really productive at Liberty in 2023, came over to LSU, not as productive as I thought he was going to be. And LSU wants to rotate the wide receivers, and they got other couple talented wide receivers. I think he could come in and be extremely productive for Colorado and kind of replace that Will Sheppard presence that Colorado had in 2024. Last name I want to mention here, Kobe Prentice from Alabama. This kid can play, and he didn't get a ton of opportunity in 2024 because of guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard who were injected into this program. Kobe Prentice is, to me, kind of like the Jimmy Horn, LeJounte Wester kind of guy, can separate, can be really, really dangerous after the catch. That's probably another type of wide receiver that you want to replace with guys like Jimmy and LeJounte going to the NFL. Kobe Prentice, I look at 5'10", $188. He's built. I made the LeJounte Wester, Jimmy Horn comp. He's built a little bit more. Really good after the catch. 10'8" guy in the 100-meter coming out of high school. Really was impressive as a sophomore and freshman at Alabama. I think we all looked at him going into 2024 and said, this kid has a bright future. And then you have Ryan Williams, and he just didn't get the opportunity that he wanted. And that does not say anything about Kobe Prentice. Ryan Williams is 1-1 at Alabama. And so, like, the fact that Kobe Prentice kind of got jumped by Ryan Williams does not tell me that Kobe Prentice is a bad football player. I think this kid could provide that LeJounte Wester, Jimmy Horn value for Colorado in that pass catching room. Now, one other pass catcher I want to look at, and that's the tight end position, especially with it potentially starting a true freshman wide or quarterback in Julian Lewis. Go give him a big, big body target. And this is something that's been missing in this Colorado offense. I mean, Savell Smalls was a former defensive lineman, transition to tight end, solid, but not a difference maker at tight end. That's one thing that Colorado has kind of not had over the last 2 years. This kid, Tanner Koizil from Ball State, 6'7", 240, really interesting tracker. I mean, he was 6'7", 190 coming out of high school. A lot of Power 4 programs didn't really touch him because he was just an underdeveloped kid. Puts the weight on. You go back to this last 2024 season, 94 catches, 839 yards, 8 touchdowns. The thing you love most is that red zone threat. I mean, at 6'7", you don't have to be perfect when you're throwing a guy like Tanner. He's going to go up and make plays for you. Really good in those contested catch situations. This one to me would make a lot of sense because, one, Colorado hasn't really had that difference maker, middle of the field commander tight end. I think that's something you want to have in this offense if you're going to rock with the true freshman quarterback in Julian Lewis. Give him that safety blanket, big body target. I think this kid could be that guy. I think that's an interesting guy to kick around. Now, if you were to address the offensive line, I think you go with experience, and I think you probably go at the right tackle spot. Jordan Seaton, hey, lock the door, throw away the key. We know we got a dog at left tackle. It was one of the more impressive left tackle freshmen I've seen in a really long time. I think you feel good about the center position with Cash Cleveland and his development. I mean, did he struggle at times? He's a walk-on true freshman. I think he's going to get better going into year 2. There's a lot of youth on this Colorado offensive line. You got guys like Zach Owens and Peyton Kirkland going into year 3, guys that I think certainly could be contributors in 2025, but you don't have a ton of career starts and career snaps. Do you want to inject a little bit more experience into this offensive line? Xavier Gray, talk about experience. He's going to be a 7th-year senior. He's played over 2,200 career snaps, started at Akron, went to Liberty, has started the last 2 seasons straight at right tackle, and this dude is a mountain of a man. Now, is the footwork where you want it to be? No, but he's 6'8", 340. I don't think he's ever going to have elite footwork. Big, big body. That's hard to get around. that can move people in the run game. And that's something that Colorado is also probably thinking about is, hey, we probably want to have a better run game in 2025 too. A true freshman quarterback, what's the best thing you can give to a young quarterback? Give him a good run game, work some play action. Xavier Gray getting that run game going, just moving smaller bodies off the line of scrimmage. This kid can do that. So he's experienced, has started the last 2 seasons at right tackle at Liberty, a Liberty program that's been very good the last 2 years, and he can move bodies in the run game. To me, that checks a lot of boxes. Now, going over to the defensive side of the football, I'm kind of interested to see the strategy that Colorado decides to go with in terms of building back this front seven where you're going to lose some really good football players. Let's start on the defensive line. I want to start with a guy that gives you a lot of versatility in Justus Boone. Justus Boone is not going to be the flashiest name that we see in the transfer portal. This kid was supposed to be a stud in 2023. He was making a lot of noise in spring practice and fall camp heading into 2023. 2 weeks before the season, season-ending injury, misses all of 2023, comes back for 2024, didn't quite look like himself, but still a solid football player. What happens year 2 removed from the injury? That's kind of interesting to me. And he, at the end of the day, he's a power 4 caliber body that can play on the edge. He looks bigger than 266, probably could give you some 3-tech reps as well. He's a depth piece, and he's a depth piece that gives you a very high floor. Like, hey, we know we're going to get a solid football player in him with the potential to get a really good football player with Justus Boone. He's kind of the type of guy I would be looking for. Give me a good floor. Give me a damn solid player with the potential of being a really, really good player. That's kind of what Justus Boone does, and I would project that Colorado goes to the transfer portal pretty heavy on the defensive line. At the linebacker spot, I think this is worth looking at too. I look at the secondary and say I kind of like the young bodies that you have in the secondary, and I'm sure Colorado will try to address that position too. That's a position that Coach Prime can very easily recruit to. Andrew Jones at linebacker started at Memphis, transferred to Grambling State, 122 tackles, 3 sacks, 34 run stops. Kind of a similar storyline to Nikhai Hill-Green. Like, was a 4-star prospect out of high school, transfers to a lower level, really good year. Now he's looking to get back up to the power 4 level. Andrew Jones, to me, could be that guy. And he just finds the football. I don't watch a ton of Grambling State football, but when you turn it on for Andrew Jones, 1, he's a physical dude. And number 2, he's a guy that's played a lot and knows how he's a tackling machine. And that's what you want in an off-ball linebacker. Andrew Jones would be another guy that I'd be looking at. And you know Coach Prime wants to go to the SWAC. He knows there's some good players there. That's who I got right now. And again, we'll continue to update the list and we'll talk about the targets that emerged for Colorado. But if you're asking me right now what positions and what kind of players, this is what I got. Again, appreciate you guys. It's going to be a really, really fun next couple of weeks. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.